Podcast is What's Next, and this is our second episode, and we've already got our first sponsor, and it's Drops of Balance. Drops of Balance is a product that you put into your water, drinking water, to put back some of the minerals that are depleted from land being so over-farmed, that type of thing. I think about 10 drops per gallon. I put a couple of droppers into my 5-gallon before I put it in. And that's, like I said, just depleted farmland. Which is a good segue. Miss Cherri Metzger we have today. And
Hi.
Cherri works with a lot of the farmers and the employees, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so yeah, I've worked in agriculture most of my life, actually, even though I have another career.
Okay.
And currently, I've done everything in agriculture, from wholesale and retail sales to driving a tractor to to everything. But now that I'm old, they've sent me back to the office, and I mostly do HR and safety. And what I do right now is I'm a safety training coordinator.
Right, that's what I've talked to you about. Was the safety? What all do you do? You like run them through courses? What kind of safety are you?
Yeah, so it's both safety and HR. So what I do is I run orientations. So employee orientations, like their first day to work is an orientation where they go through all the required trainings, like pesticide safety training, their anti-harassment training, general safety rules, heat stress. They also get a review of HR benefits and payroll and food safety. So we're really big on food safety because of everything that's been going on over the past, say, 10 years. We have to make sure that the customer's getting clean, safe food. So what's
been going on? What do you mean?
Like people getting E. coli,
salmonella, alkali, that kind of thing. Okay, that was a few years ago
raw
now.
Agricultural products,
I see, right.
And so most big companies have entire departments that handle food safety, and they're constantly testing product. They have all these rules, those rules are passed down to the harvesters.
Okay.
Right away at the beginning, and then every 2 weeks they get retrained on different things that they need to know, like animal intrusion and. And
these are the workers that are out there in the field that are actually going through these. I see. Okay.
Yeah. So I do a lot of that, and then when we're not doing orientations, we're setting up our CPR trainings. We're doing scissor lift trainings. I'm currently working on an active shooter training program, so we could train everybody how to respond if somebody shows up with a gun, because that seems to be happening more and more.
The thing. We have to look out for. Holy cow. It's crazy.
There's a zillion different kinds of training that we're working on, and sometimes I'm doing the training myself. Sometimes I'm coordinating with colleagues who do the training. Sometimes I'm pulling in third-party trainers. Like our CPR instructor is someone who's been doing CPR all his life. He's been in the medical field. He's an EMT paramedic, and it's better. He's like fantastic.
Okay.
So I have a third party come in and do CPR training.
Right. Okay. So you have separate people that come in, right? Mm-hmm. How do you communicate? I mean, I know you because you were a massage therapist for 20 years, and as soon as we met, we became fast friends. So we've talked about a lot of different things. Tell me a little bit about you started massage like 20 years, you said, and until you had hurt your wrist or had to have some. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that was my second love, was massage therapy. So I've always done agriculture, but because I was a very I had my own back problems because of all the physical work I did, and I also was an athlete. So I hurt myself.
Knew where all the pain was.
Yeah, and I was a very reckless youth. So I was flipping over my handlebars of my mountain bike or lifting heavy things in the agricultural world, and that I should have asked for help.
You shouldn't have been,
and I didn't, because I had something to prove, I guess. And so I took an interest in massage therapy because I was getting massage therapy along with other kinds of therapy. I see. And it was working for me.
Right.
And I ran across a woman who owned a school. She was one of the people who worked on me, and she kept telling me, "Oh, you'd make a great therapist." I'm like, no, I'm a farmer. No. And she dragged me kicking and screaming down to her school just to see it. Right. And the next thing I knew, I was taking classes at night, and then I got certified. And because I've always been very active and curious, I had a side business of massage therapy.
I see.
So I do my ag job in the day, and then I do massage therapy at night and on the weekends.
Right.
I slept like 4 to 5 hours and back up and do it again.
Yeah.
But then I went to massage full time and ran my own
did you?
business.
Okay.
But then I came back to ag.
Did you?
So
Okay.
It's kind of my short.
Yeah, you said you worked on some Hollywood stars, worked on a Prince, you worked on 20 years. That's
yeah. Well,
that's
I mean,
major.
I was in the North Bay, so Marin, Sonoma, Napa counties attract a lot of high profile clientele for the resorts and the spas. And yes, and I signed a waiver at one of these places, never to mention their name. So, well, we can say it. I just can't say their names, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I did.
Very generic.
Yeah. And and I also worked on a lot of athletes.
Oh, did you?
A lot of athletes for clients because I was an athlete, so that was
right. I love that.
Yeah, a big interest of mine was people who were really working out and keeping their bodies in good shape.
When the muscles are in good shape and they're exactly. Yeah. When we work on all different kinds, but I love the sports injuries, scoliosis, car accidents, because you really feel like you're making a difference.
You're making a difference. You're helping people.
Right. So many people. A lady just came in and she said, my therapist therapist told her not to do massage because it wasn't helping, and she'd heard that from chiropractors. And I thought that's very strange. I don't understand why they would say that the massage doesn't do any good when we're loosening the muscles and we're elongating and stretching and pushing all the toxic crap out of the muscle fibers. Seems like we're doing some good, It just makes me so mad because
my doctor, my family practitioner, my general practitioner, she, because she gave me a prescription. She was like, "You've got to get massages."
Right.
I mean, we have. There's so much empirical evidence that massage does great things, including de-stress.
Yeah, and we have a lot of doctors that come in too. So
yeah. So that's odd to hear. That person obviously is not informed. Right.
Well, I don't mean to jump around a little bit. I was just giving a little background on why we know each other and we talk so much. So I know you speak fluent Spanish. I was going to ask you, how do you communicate with the people out in the field? Obviously, you speak Spanish, and I know that because I know you. Yeah. But tell me a little bit about that. How'd you come across that?
Well, I learned from them.
Did you?
So when I first...
so you've been in agriculture all your life, so it's just kind of you have to.
Well, and I just was gregarious. I was not shy. I realized when I got to California 40 years ago, and because I came here because of agriculture. This is the forefront of agriculture.
Okay.
When I got here, I worked in the field and I worked, in packing sheds and I looked around, I said, oh boy, I better learn this language because these are the people I need to be able to speak to. Yeah. So I bought a stack of books and at night I would study and I'd ask people, am I saying this right? How do you say this? How do you say that? And so
slang and there's, it's different from book to,
Right. So like the colloquial language, the cultural language. And that's how I first learned it was from the people.
Right.
And I picked it up really easily.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Like you just got that kind of mind, just soaked it right up.
Language works for me, Right. Not everything works for me, but that's one thing that works for me. And it was really easy, and I could memorize it really quickly. And then when I was 50, and I went back to school because I never went to university. I went to school when I was 50. The first degree I got was Spanish. I thought, okay, cool, let's get a degree to back up all this experience, right?
Put that on a resume.
And my professor was from Guadalajara.
So really?
She was a native speaker.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I made a huge leap.
Right. Yeah, I think you said you, in fact, dated a guy that didn't speak English for a while.
Actually, my husband.
Oh, he's a husband.
Yeah, I married someone who was born and raised in Mexico.
So you need fluent, right? So when you say you're fluent, that's like everyday life living with somebody. Yeah, that's about as fluent as you can get, huh?
Yep. Because that's what it takes. You can do all the books you want.
Yeah, you hear that, don't you? You can learn all you want, but until you get yourself submersed into that, I've heard that before.
I think that's like with anything, right? You have to dive in to whatever you want to do. Yeah. Or you're not going to learn it.
Right, for sure. So tell me where you grew up. Where'd you grow up? In California?
No, I grew up in New England. Actually.
New England, wow.
In Connecticut.
A long way from home.
Yeah, and I haven't lived there since I was 17, and I'm 63. So let's do the math. Like
so you went off to college, and just went off to college and did anything like that?
No, I didn't go to college.
Okay.
I just got in the back of a 48 Chevy pickup truck with friends.
See ya.
And headed west because I was in love with agriculture, and I knew if I was going to have an agricultural career, I needed to be in California.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Michigan, and we have quite an agricultural we have corn and a lot of onions and cherries and, all that kind of thing.
Sunflowers too. Don't you guys have
Huge,
sunflowers?
right. Asparagus is huge, it's beautiful blackbird up there, but it's seasonal.
Yeah.
So they, the people that are working on the farms, they take off for Texas or Florida or wherever when the snow starts flying or long before,
Right.
So I'm used to more of a real migrant worker that are moving back and forth to one side of the country to the other, So that's why, I asked you about migrant. So yeah, that's the only, there's a lot of towns up north and everything where, there's a very high Spanish population from, a lot of people living there and generations living there, I'm sure,
And they work in the fields.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
That's the thing is we wouldn't eat if they weren't here.
Right.
And that's something that needs to be said.
But over the generations, as maybe grandpa came in here as a farmer, or maybe the daughter got a house, sent the kids to college, you know what I mean? So, it's progressed into, more than just agricultural communities in there.
Well, it's true, and that is a really good point. Right now, the agricultural community here in Monterey County, mostly Salinas and the Salinas Valley, but we are every single employer in the Salinas Valley is struggling to find employees.
Really?
And it's a huge thing, and people are getting together. There's committees. People are talking about it. What are we going to do? Basically, we cannot find enough people to harvest.
Because of the kids.
Kids don't want to
do it.
They're in the office now doing things like what I'm doing.
Right.
Or they've gone off and become nurses. Or they're continuing their education and they want to become something else. They don't want to break their backs harvesting everybody's food.
Right.
So, and we won't talk about politics, but politics have kind of shut down the migration over the border, and we don't have a program. We do actually have a program, and it's complicated, and people are starting to lean towards that, and that's the H-2A program. That is a dignified program where people can come over the border legally with an identification. Employers are fully responsible for everything. They have to provide them housing, transportation, a place to cook or food, rides back and forth like to doctors and stores, and they're able to stay here for a season, and then they have to go back to Mexico.
Okay.
And that is what is happening now, and hopefully they're going to make the H-2A program more user-friendly, because without these people, we aren't going to have food. It doesn't matter whether you eat vegetables or not. They also work in the slaughterhouses. They also work in the canning companies like Contadina and Muir Glen and Hunt's. They are the people who are producing and processing our food.
Right.
So there is this H-2A program, but it's complicated because think about it. If you're an agricultural employer, you have to provide housing for them. How expensive is that? And the law makes it so that they have to have a specific type of housing. It can't be some dump where there's not hot and cold running water, and there's no. It has to be a certain square feet. It has to meet standards, standards that it should meet.
Right.
But this is the new thing: is this H-2A program, and that's where a lot of companies are going because there are not people to harvest our food.
Yeah.
And actually, there was something on the TV in Arizona. My mom called me to say, "Hey, I saw this program about farmers in Georgia who don't have enough people, and they actually dissed in acres and acres and acres of tomatoes and other things because they couldn't get anybody to work either." So this is not just a California thing. This is a countrywide issue.
Sure. Right.
So that's one of the up and coming discussions that needs to happen, and it needs to happen now.
Right.
Because we can't live without food, and we don't want to be outsourcing food.
Yeah, it goes across the board. I've had an ad out to hire therapists for over a week now. I haven't got a peep back. I don't know. When I came to California, I came with a stack of resumes, and I just went to every place that offered massages, and I went and talked to them. I didn't hear back from them within a week. I went and talked to them again. It's like, I've been here for 10 years. I've never had anybody come in and ask me for a job. It seems very odd to me, Yeah. I mean, I hear there's a lot of therapists around. Whether they just do, I don't know. I don't understand why. It's odd. It's very odd that nobody would just call me. I'm pretty high up on Yelp. Seems like somebody might want to work here.
I would think so, like especially
Never.
that they would have their own. You have a studio space for them,
Sure,
right?
yeah,
So
they would have their own room. They'd
They could
have
put it
everything.
together the way they wanted it to be.
Decorated it for them, but I don't know.
Well, I
It's
think
odd.
you and I have talked about like giving away a lot of money for people to stay home, right? So if people are making money to stay home, then
I wonder if that's it. If they're just being paid to stay home right now and they're scared, or you're pretty close up on people. So if you're scared of the COVID, you probably
that's true. But you can wear a mask and you can sanitize, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that because the woman who cleans for my company, she's a great woman. She actually used to work for the company I work for, and then she started her own cleaning company with the support of the company. They helped her.
I see.
And so she dedicates herself pretty much to Diarigo, but she had other clients. Well, she's lost some people over COVID. She lost some of her employees because they could make more money to stay home, and they're still making more money.
Right.
And she's been begging them, come back to work.
Exactly.
I'll give you a raise. They don't. They're like making, one of her
That's
girls
what I'm
is making
afraid of.
$3,000 between all the
Yeah,
different types
mercy.
of welfare.
Yeah.
$3,000 a month to stay home with her kids.
Wow.
And so she has had to turn away clients who want her to clean for them.
What was that beep?
There was a beep.
There was a
Was
beep.
that a camera? It sounded like it came from over here, but I'm not sure. We don't want to be turned off. We're on a roll, right?
No, what happened? Perfect. It's going.
Okay.
New equipment. I have to.
Well, that's cool.
Maybe it overheated. I don't know. It's a goofy little
Maybe it
camera
was
in
just beeping. Maybe it's a timer or
there.
something.
It agreed with you. Like, woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
So
else is going on in your life? You came here from the gym. It's not like you're working out, huh?
yeah. Well, I am. Because I've told you, I am fascinated with the topic that you've chosen for your podcast.
Yeah.
What's next? I think everybody asks themselves that maybe even more than once in their life, right?
Right.
And it's interesting that we're doing this today because yesterday I did something I've never done before.
Do tell.
Yeah. So I've been asking myself a lot, what's next? What's next? I'm 63. I would like to retire. Can I retire? What's next? What's next? What's my purpose? And I don't know what happened. It came over me, but I went to a shamanic healer yesterday.
Wow.
I've never done anything like this before.
Okay.
And it was pretty phenomenal. I just Googled shamanic healers near me now, right?
Right.
And
I
this
don't know
woman popped
shamanic.
up.
What is that? What is that word? Shamanic.
Well, I think it's an old term based on cultural practices for calling in higher power to heal people, right?
Okay.
And to clear energy.
Right.
I think that's sort of in a
see.
nutshell.
Okay.
And there's different schools of thinking about this, right? Like the indigenous peoples of most lands had a shamanic healer.
I see.
A healer, right? A
Right.
medicine man or medicine woman. And people are still practicing that. And I've never done it, although I'm very open-minded and I'm very curious. And I thought, I want to go and experience this. Right. And maybe it'll help me, right? So the very first thing that really impressed me about her was she told me right away, she says, I don't have answers for you. Nobody has answers for you. You have the
If that's what you're
answers.
searching for,
Yeah.
I don't have them.
She says, you have the answers. What
that's
I'm going to
great.
do is get you into your body, get you settled and out of this restless craziness of, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? She said, and you're going to have the answers. And I thought, okay, that's cool. That made sense to me, right?
Right.
And it didn't feel like there was no ego around her work at all. And she had her hands like kind of on my belly for a while and, one underneath my back and one on top. It was very non-offensive kind of energy work. And she was talking to me about things and she talked to me about things that she saw or that came up. And she said to me, you're all concerned about your purpose. Like, what's your purpose now, right? Because you're 63 and she goes, your purpose is to make yourself happy, to like find things that give you joy.
Right.
Because if you're happy, then that's what you're going to give to other people.
Right. Exactly.
And then your creativity will come out of that happiness. Yeah. And I thought, oh my goodness sakes alive, that makes so much sense to me. Right.
Right.
And life is so
Not that
short.
you didn't know that already, but to have somebody read it and tell you, this is, almost giving you the okay or something, huh?
And I think and she also said, we need to make decisions not just with our head. She says, and that's something that she does by what she calls getting you into your body. She said, people need to make decisions that involve the heart, the belly, and the head, and that those three things should be, because your belly is like your gut intuition, your instincts,
Sure.
right? Your heart is your compassion and how you feel about things, right? And how things make you feel. And then your head is the thinking process. But she says most people get so caught up in their head, and we got to analyze it. We got to, it's got to be the right thing.
Right.
It's got to make sense. It's got to be logical. She says sometimes choices are not logical at first, but the logic comes out later on.
Right.
And she said, I just
go
tell
by the
people,
gut feeling, huh?
Exactly.
Right.
Use your heart, your gut, and your head together to find your next purpose.
Right.
And that made so much sense to me. So I've been walking around all since yesterday and today, really feeling trying to see the connection of my gut and my heart and my head, because they're all in one body, right?
Yeah.
Here they are.
Right.
I have all three.
But a lot of different forces that have to kind of come together. Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm now approaching what's next for me by trying to feel it, get the intuition about it, and also make sure that it makes sense from the thinking process.
Right.
And going on what she says, it's like, do things that give you joy, do things that make you happy. So, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning cultivating my garden. That made me really happy.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
And
had some problems with your tomatoes or something.
Oh, I ripped them all out. They had worms.
Just tore them all out.
Yeah, I ripped them out. They had worms. I have too small of a garden for those tomatoes. But it made me happy to rip them out because I cleaned up everything, right?
Right. If you're not going to behave, you're going to have to leave because we need this room here. It's a limited space here. We'll grow some cucumbers or something if you're not going to behave.
Exactly. They weren't behaving.
That's right.
Misbehaving tomatoes.
That's right. Yep. So tell me about a neighborhood cat that's sneaking in there.
Oh, yeah.
Stealing your...
I know. I probably shouldn't have ripped out the tomatoes because I had great entertainment. So early in the mornings when I have my tea or coffee, I open my shades. It's just getting light because I get up really early. And this cat has been dropping out of the sky, or it looks like that because I can't see where he's jumping from.
That's funny.
So it looks like he drops out of the sky, and it always is really cute. And he does this little cat kind of slinking thing, and then he has been catching rats that have been coming in to eat my tomatoes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So he slinks around, and I'll see the rat, and then I'm like, no, don't look at me, look at the rat, right? And then he goes in where the rat went in, and he pops out the other side with a big fat rat in his mouth.
Perfect.
And then he leaps to the top of the 6-foot fence without an effort with that big fat rat in his head. Right. And it's been great morning entertainment.
That's great. Keep those cats coming.
But now I ripped out the tomatoes.
I know.
No rats, no cats, right?
They'll go after something else.
Yeah.
So you just got a small garden. You want to...
Yeah, I'm a displaced farmer. I've got 2 feet by 8 feet.
If you're going to retire, you're thinking about retiring, you're going to need more than 6 by 8 feet.
I know. I need 100 acres.
Yeah, oh, geez.
But can you imagine doing that all by yourself?
Yeah, no, maybe 10 or 20 acres, maybe. What would you grow?
I'd like to grow fruit trees, nut trees, you name it, vegetables, all kinds of vegetables.
Yeah.
And then, I like horticultural plants too, like vines, wisteria, and Hardenbergia, and roses. And boy, it would be great but I tend to lean towards drought resistant now. We need to be thinking about that.
Right.
So, but you can put drip lines in and not waste a lot of water.
Right.
But I can't do that by myself now.
Yeah.
So that's not what's next for me.
That's not what's next.
That's a dream
Simpler. I was talking to a gal the other day, and her dad's retired up in his 80s, and he's got a little plot of land, and he grows all his corn so he can make his tortillas, and he grows what else was it? Some type of not a chia seed, but something like that, so he could sell that for a little bit of money, and he just tends his little land, or I don't know exactly how much he has, but probably a few acres, and just grows his own stuff.
And I bet he is really happy.
So I bet he is.
Putzing through the dirt.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
Not
great
a ton
life.
of cares in the world, Yeah.
Watching nature do its thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then taking that and making corn tortillas and feeding, and that's, I always thought that's neat to have a garden and be able to actually use it.
Right.
I'm not a huge cook, but I know a lot of people, they have all their gardening, and they get their peppers, and they get their cucumbers and their tomatoes like you, and just make it all part of the meal.
Well, I grew up like that in the country with big gardens, and
right. How cool.
My mom wasn't into canning, but we would blanch and freeze all of our stuff.
Sure, yeah.
We would store down in our basement in big hay barrels with hay. We'd store our hard squash and our onions and our potatoes, and so I grew up like that. And it is kind of sad that I don't have that, but
yeah,
I've done it for other people.
You got to start your own podcast. Teaching people how to live off the grid, or
that was one of my dreams.
Grow their own foods, or
that was one of my dreams.
Yeah, wouldn't that be neat?
Have a big community land where people came in and learned.
Right. Now agricultural, people, teaching, electronics. You're good to go.
Yeah.
It's be easy retirement.
And you know what?
Fun.
I think in the future people are going to need that kind of education. Because,
sure, I think so.
With petroleum running out, and it's going to be really expensive. I mean, we're running out of fossil fuels, right? We will, and we're consuming it like drug addicts, and we're just sucking up petroleum products left and right. And we're going to actually run low in probably a couple generations. I mean, people are going to need to know how to plant food in their backyard, because we aren't going to be able to transport all this food all over the place.
I heard a scientist say one time that we have maybe 20 years worth, or I forget exactly the number of X amount of years we have that we already have in reserve. But if we burned it at that rate, the air would be unsustainable for humans. So we already have enough oil to destroy the planet.
Yeah.
But they're spending millions and millions of dollars every year to find new processes to take more oil out of the ground. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me unless the scientist is just playing kind of some scare tactic or whatever. And but
I don't think they are. I
don't know. It doesn't make sense. Like, who's at the top of these oil companies going, yeah, let's go get some more?
Well, because they're making millions of dollars.
It's not one guy, right?
It's making millions, and money talks.
Right.
And logic does not.
Right. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense.
We need to, there's alternatives. We already have the science. I don't know why we're not using it. I mean, I think the young people are going to do it. I have a lot of faith in them. They're going to do it.
They have to.
They're good. We've left them with a mess.
I know, right? They have to, right?
Yeah.
Well, other people have said, like the Green Deal. Let's do this Green Deal. So we're just working on solar and wind. Unfortunately, we can only make about 20% of what we need to survive right now. The rest has to be fossil fuel. So it's a great idea to switch over to green, but it just doesn't seem possible yet. So that's what when you say the kids, that's what they're going to have to pick up the ball and make some type of sustainable that we can use if we're going to get rid of fossil fuel. Because it'll be really tough to making plastics, and a very small percentage actually goes to making fuel.
Right, plastics and running manufacturing companies to make other things.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So it's not just the cars, it's not just the fuel. It's like, it's easy to get mad at that and global warming. We're giving off, I understand that, but in reality, the oil that's coming out of the ground is mostly going to manufacturing.
Right, and the manufacturing of products.
Right.
Too much plastic, though.
Plastics, yeah. Something's got to be done, But there's ways to get around that.
I think there is.
But it's just not economically, yet.
I think there is, though. Like,
sure.
We could replace plastics.
Sure.
We could.
It'd be a huge hassle. Well, I don't know. Maybe the hospitals would have a little hard time with the plastics. We'd have to get around that. It's not like we can just turn off the oil.
We need to be working towards it.
We need to be working
like little
towards
by
it.
every day,
Right,
every month, every year.
Right.
People who are intelligent and know about these things need to
Exactly.
be working towards
Right.
more sustainable products.
Right, exactly.
Because what we're doing now is not sustainable.
No, the landfills, it's just incredible.
Yeah, and they're not. The garbage isn't breaking down.
No.
I took an environmental science class a few years back, and they, dumps, how they'll cover them up and they stick those pipes in to let the methane gas
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
And they're trying to,
Sure.
then they go back in like 30 years later, and they've gone back into some of these.
Have they?
And the garbage is like petrified.
It's still there.
And the only thing that's like food products and stuff has decomposed, but all the garbage in the plastic bags is as if nothing has happened to it because
I've wondered that before.
Yeah,
When you're
it's 'cause
throwing
it's-
into plastic bags, might as well put a
it's
rain cover
plastic
on
and
it.
it's anaerobic down there, right? So
What's
there's
anaerobic?
nothing.
What does that mean?
Oh, it means without oxygen, right?
I
So
see.
it's not. There's no breaking down of any of this stuff.
Oh, okay, right,
And so they cover it back up, but we need to change how we do things. Really.
right. It's just mind-boggling, how much trash we go through. And I heard many years ago about how they were having problems shipping barges over. They were trying to ship them over to Canada, and people were buying our garbage. And
Oh, for recycling, right? Or,
I think they were just buying it, putting it in their landfills. I don't know.
really?
It's just because didn't have enough room in New York or wherever that was. They were just shipping it all out, and it would go up to Canada, and they would pay them to get rid of it.
because they got so much more land.
It's just
up
too
there.
many people. Yeah, it's just too many people in one
Interesting.
place. That was years ago. I heard that, but I couldn't have stopped.
Yeah, we
More
make
people
a
in New
lot
York
of
than there was
garbage.
then.
We make a lot of garbage.
It's sad, right? Well, we can't solve that problem today.
No, but thinking about what's next that's something that's next.
That's
We
next,
need to deal
right.
with this.
Right.
And I don't know. I think the young people they'll make it happen. There's a lot of really smart young people out there who are seeing where we're at. They're paying attention, and I think they want to make things different in on many levels of society. And I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I wish there was something I could do about it, but I know what? I recycle everything possible. Even like when I go home, like for instance, I've got this. This is actually compostable. Here's an
Compostable
example.
plastic. See, right.
It's
I know
actually
it's
not
there.
made. It's made from corn. It's actually not plastic.
Is it really?
Yeah, and there's a bunch
That's
of this.
incredible.
Yeah, they can from banana fiber, from corn, and from potato. They're making a
Right.
lot of things that look like plastic, but they're actually compostable. So
See, that's why I'm saying that the hospitals can't get away from plastics, but maybe they can.
I think they can.
I don't know if that would, drugs or whatever would eat through that. I don't know the scientifics behind it, but
Right, it's a good.
it's got to be.
Right, it's a good point.
Right. Stop feeding the humans the corn and start making it into some plastics.
Yeah, well, and it's not plastic. It's something else.
Right,
it's compostable plant
plastic.
fiber.
Right,
Yeah. So
exactly.
this is really cool. This is from one of the local coffee shops, and instead of using plastic, they're using these certified compostable cups. And,
Perfect.
that's going to
Paper
go.
thing.
Yep, that'll break down.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was funny. The last person I had in here, he was just getting out of the military, and I asked him what's next. It's just kind of in the middle of a change right now. Seems like you may be in too. What's next is kind of not ready to answer that question yet, huh?
Well, since my shamanic encounter, and I'm thinking about purpose, and I actually I downloaded some stuff today because I'm thinking about how we're engaged on a daily basis. Like if our purpose in life, according to the shaman, was to make ourselves happy, right? To do things that give us joy, you think, well, but I got to work for a living, right? So can I work at something that gives me joy? I mean, I'm imagining you probably get a lot of joy out of what you're doing. When I did massage, I got a lot of joy out of it. And for the reasons we just talked about, that you feel like you're making a difference in people's lives.
Right.
So I was thinking a lot about that, like what I'm doing right now. And the truth is, I don't feel like I'm making a big difference in people's lives. I feel like I'm checking off a box for legal compliance for a company. And yep, look, we did it. But the people who I'm teaching and training, very little of what I'm teaching and training is really very effective, or that they really care or give a hoot about it, and they
just
know
checking the boxes,
that I'm checking the box too.
Right.
And some of them even said that to me, like, Cherri, you're really great. We really like that you come out here with all this positive energy, but we know that we're here because we're paid to be here.
Yes,
and the company's checking off a box. I've actually had employees say that to me, and I stand there with a big little smile on, going, "Yeah, but there's good information here, right?" So I was thinking a lot about engagement, because after somebody says that to you, you go home thinking, "Oh my God," and how do you go back and you keep being engaged, right? And I was thinking about employee engagement, and I've got some really interesting download stuff here. Do you know that in statistics, 59%, here it is right here, 59% of Americans, 53% of U.S. workers say they're not engaged at all.
Really?
That's over half of the people. This is
Gallup, is all workers.
Gallup poll. Yeah, it's a Gallup poll. Gallup does some great research. 53% of the people that they surveyed say, no, I go to work. I do what I have to do. I try to do as best I can, but it's the minimal. I try to do the minimal, and I go home. I get my paycheck. I go home, and they're not engaged, right? And so I think about that, and I see it in my own office space. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. I work with hundreds of people, and actually thousands of people. But right in my not local, but my department and the departments I integrate with a lot. Nobody's engaged. No, are you kidding? They're in there. They live for their 15-minute breaks, their 30 or 60-minute lunches, and their weekends. It's like, for sure somebody's going to say to you, "Oh, it's Monday. Oh my God, thank God it's Wednesday. Hey, it's Friday." And they're looking at their watches and they're looking, oh, it's break time. And I'm thinking, what a way to live.
Yeah.
Like, I never wanted to be like that, and I've never been like that until now. Like, I'm suddenly finding myself in the same boat. Like, I'm living for Friday. Like, I go in, I get up every morning, I'm like, oh my God, I got to go back and do that again. Because it's somebody else's dream, and I know I'm not really
somebody else's dream
making a difference.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, and I think 53% of Americans are doing that, and that seems to me very sad.
Yeah.
Like, what if we were in love with what we were doing? Like, is there a way to make that happen? So I think, like, personally, I'm not responsible for 53% or any percent of American workers. I'm only responsible for myself.
That's right.
So that's what's next for me, is how can I continue to contribute to society, and it brings me joy, and I can make a difference again.
Right.
Like, I want to make a difference.
Thing. If I learned nothing else during the pandemic, they came in and they shut my place down for 9 months. And although I had all that time, it was hard for me to not have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose when you get up in the morning, other than I got to go water the plants, feed the fish, go visit my studio that I haven't given a massage in months and months and months. It's hard, I had other things to do too, but without that purpose, life was just so shallow. Yeah.
Right, because it's only about you then, the fish and everything is only you and your little world, right? And you could hear that, you could feel that in your emails to your clients. Like, I remember reading your emails when you're giving us the update on what the CDC was saying to you and the local government, and I could hear your and I cannot hear. Well, yeah, sort of hear it. I was reading your email and I could feel, oh my God, he's really bummed out about it.
Right, I was too. Right, I've never had a job that. Well, I built houses for a long time, and it's very rewarding to stand back and look at a house or a mansion that was just a plot of dirt a minute ago or a month ago, and now it's this big beautiful house. That's very rewarding. But this is on a personal level, person to person. This is different because I can actually work through different problems that people have, and just without that purpose. It's just like. But
I would defend your carpentry thing is because you built a home for people, and you may not have touched them physically, but you provided a home, and home is so important.
And I like the idea that house will be here long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
And generations of people will use that house. You know, first the Jones will live there, and then the Smiths, and it just keeps selling, and so many people get to enjoy that home over, you know, the next 100 years. I like that. That's really cool, because they'll go through and remodel and rip it apart, make it their own. You know, I love housing. You know.
Yeah, no, that is a beautiful. I mean, that carpentry is a career that's got a lot of honor.
Yeah.
And it's ancient. I mean, it's very old.
Yeah,
career,
right? The Jewish carpenter was Jesus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It goes all the way back.
Yeah, no, I think that you very much affected people's lives in that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And building a pole barn for them, or doing a garage, or just remodeling their bathroom. It just changes their whole life. Yeah, it does. It's kind of neat, you know. But nothing like getting somebody and taking their pain away.
Yeah.
And making them. You know, you've seen that many times. If you have repeat customers, that somebody will come in and they're sad, and they're wearing dark clothes, and their makeup's not on, and their hair's not right, and they've been living with the shoulder problem. I can't. And then a month later, they come in and they got their jewelry on, their makeup's on, they're wearing bright colors, and you know, and they'll say, I've just been feeling better lately. And you know, it's maybe a little bit has to do with you and taking that pain away.
Right.
That constant, you know, that constant vice on your head or shoulder or whatever. It just takes you down. You know, you had a little bit of part to do with making that girl's or man's life a little better.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of
I
neat.
think we all need a purpose. And, I mean, I think everybody feels differently about it, but for sure, I think when we don't have a purpose, we're wandering around looking for one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there may be people who disagree with that, but I have a feeling most people would probably agree with it.
Well, like you said, like a huge percentage of people. Watching a podcast one time, and the guy was, what's his name? Gale something. But he was saying what a huge percentage of people, if you just walk up to on the street and say, why do you go to work ever in the morning? And they would have absolutely no idea other than that's what people do.
I have to pay my mortgage. I have to feed my kids.
I don't know.
Yep.
Or they just don't know, right?
Yeah.
They're just doing what everybody else is doing. Just following it, you know.
Oh, that brings up
That's
something
hard.
else I've been thinking a lot about, because I don't know if you like, I really loved Henry David Thoreau's work.
Yeah.
And part of it is because he was a naturalist, and I've been thinking a lot about his quote or his statement in Walden. You know, when he went out and did the Walden experience, he lived on Walden Pond. He lived in a cabin in the woods, right?
Right.
With nothing.
Yeah.
And that was his
Not familiar with it, but I know. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So in that book, and this is a very famous saying that a lot of people talk about. It's in that book. The quoted saying is, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." I mean, that was his view of society.
I've heard that many times.
I mean,
right.
Obviously, if he lived in this day and age, where we now know that women are real human beings too, he might have said the mass of people, right? But
right.
I downloaded this article because it's by this professor of philosophy, and he disagrees with Thoreau, and he says there's no, did Thoreau actually talk to the masses of men, and how did he know that?
Yeah.
And he thinks that a lot of people are misinterpreting Thoreau's statement. He thinks that people are trying to apply that now to how
different.
People are depressed all the time, and that and he thinks that it's not true. That there's no way that Thoreau could know that the mass of people were living in quiet desperation. But I'm telling you, I've traveled a lot, and I haven't spoken to all the masses, but I've traveled a lot. I've worked with a lot of different kinds of people from cross-cultural and cross socioeconomic demographics. And just speaking about employee engagement, I think the masses do live in quiet desperation. And to answer your question about why people go to work, they go to work because money's the bottom line in this country.
Right.
Everything is about money.
Right.
And they have to pay a mortgage, and they have to feed their kids, and they have to pay their bills. And if they don't go to work, those things aren't going to happen. Right? Their kids aren't going to go to college. Their kids aren't going to have clothes. And we all know what it costs to live here, right? So I think a lot about that why we go to work isn't necessarily because it brings us joy or because we have it gives us purpose. The purpose then becomes just to bring in the money to make sure your family stays under the roof,
right?
And that they have food.
Which leave you so shallow, other than the feeling that you've supported your family and everything.
And I often think about that, like, what if community was different? Like, what if people actually, if we were living more in integrated communities where the community supported itself, where people had more time with family and with community, so that they weren't constantly in quiet desperation, getting up every day at 5 to drive that commute, to get in that job, do their employer's dream. Like, what if we could create something different where people didn't maybe have to even work 40 hours a week?
Right.
Maybe they work 30 hours a week, right? Then they have extra time.
Well, see, that's a big question with what I do with this podcast. Like, what's next for all the people that, are middle class, that used to work in manufacturing, and now they're stuck either at McDonald's or, there's stuck at working at a big box store,
Walmart
or something like that, just driving them down into the dirt, or not working at all.
And earning not enough money to really make a difference in their lives, right? Hand to mouth.
Exactly. So that's that's a huge part. If we could design a better society that we could do more. What am I trying to say? Without having to work at somebody else's dream. I think that's really coming around. I've got I watch a lot of YouTube, and it seems like the younger folks, the 20, 30-year-olds are getting back into, like you say, the farming, making their own knives, making their own buckets, doing things by hand, all that, cool things. So it's starting to come back to wanting to work with their hands, I think.
Well, and also what I see with the young people is they're not willing to do, like, say, what my dad did and what my dad taught me to do, which is like break your back for somebody.
Right.
Like, the job isn't done, so I end up staying 12 hours and then I'm exhausted, and the next day is another 10 hours because I gotta impress my boss. They're like, I need to go home. I've got friends coming, and I've got to go to the gym, and they are much better than I am at setting their boundaries.
I see. Good.
That's what I think, that they're going to figure out a way so that they can balance their life, their personal life with their work life.
Right.
And that's, I think, what one of the things that's what's next, and how we can bring, get people engaged by developing communities that support each other. I think it's time for us to stop thinking that there's a leader that's going to save us. We need to get out of this John Wayne, Superman, what did Gil Scott-Heron say? All the heroes in his songs about, we were so addicted to having somebody come in and save us from ourselves, right?
Right.
Our leaders aren't doing that anymore. I don't care which leader.
Right.
None of them are doing that. They've forgotten what their job is. It's time for us to bring it to community. Right. They got their own agenda.
Right.
And they're not saving us from...
No.
The things are not getting better. Right. We need to take leadership and make it local.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that the young people are going to do that.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It seems like it's just gotten too big. There's too many dang people to throw a big blanket over, government like that.
Yeah, our government can't solve the problems for people. Like, the problems for people, say, in New York City are really different than the problems for people in rural Northern California. Right? Or
even from New York to upstate New York.
Exactly.
It's a completely different, whether you're talking, Democrat, Republican, whatever, it's a completely different, from Detroit to Mount Pleasant in Michigan.
Yep.
You're going to find a whole different attitude, different opinion, different,
I mean, we know that we still need companies, and we need people to go to work, and we need people to be selling products, and we need people to be producing products, and we need people to be answering phones and helping customers, and we need people to be working on projects. I mean, we need the people with the big companies, right?
If everybody says, I just want to do my own thing, yeah, we're in big trouble.
Right. We can't all do our own thing.
No.
We're there's too many of us in
Right.
too small of a space. But
Right.
I think there's better ways of operating. And as an HR person now, and I'm with a lot of experience and education and certification behind me, I know that companies are looking at how are we going to get people to stay working and feel engaged and feel rewarded, not only financially, because the number one point that people make when they're surveyed about what's important to them at a company is recognition. They just want to be recognized for having for their contribution. That even weighs out heavier than the economics. People would prefer. It's not that they don't want to make more money. Everybody wants to make more money, right? But that when they're surveyed, when employees are surveyed, the number one thing that they appreciate the most is recognition. Whether it's just even their boss saying you did a great job, or say a birthday party for everybody in August, and there's cake and there's food, and they put up signs, and then their names are up there. It's some recognition as who they are as a human being, right? And
part of this team that they're working with too,
Exactly.
that they feel like they're part of this team, but a little personal recognition, a little pat on the back, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, then there's the economic, right?
Yeah.
How I know a lot of
I've
HR.
seen companies send home, just I just want to thank you for being such a great employee. Holy cow, I'll light you up for a month.
Right.
Holy cow, somebody recognized me.
Yep. Even little
that's huge.
programs
it really
like
is.
Employees of the Month, and then you get a special parking place, or you get a little
Yeah,
award, or you get
right.
a $100 gift card.
How about that, right?
Then that's economic and recognition.
Sure,
and a lot of
right.
companies are trying to do more and more of that.
Uh-huh.
And I think the other thing that I've noticing, there's a trend towards what they're calling a flatter organization, and what that means is they're disseminating the chain of command, right? That militaristic chain of command.
Right.
And of course, you can't completely flatten an organization because somebody has to make big decisions, right?
Right.
There has to be some type of hierarchy. But some of the more modern companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, they're running what they call a flatter organization. So decisions are made even at lower levels. Certain types of decisions are made even at lower levels. And I think
certain types.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to be careful of how you structure that,
Right.
but it's retaining employees, especially the
really?
younger generation,
Because they can make a decision.
because they want that responsibility.
Right.
They want to show what they can do.
Sure.
That's what gives them purpose. Let me show you what I can do,
Yeah.
instead of this heavy chain of command, like the decisions are made behind closed doors, and out comes the big bosses saying, "Okay, well, now we're going to do this, and you better do it."
Right.
Because there's this thing called change management.
Yeah.
And I recently, got my SHRM certification in HR, which is a big darn deal because SHRM is the largest HR association in the world. And I studied for a year to get this certification. And one of the big things that interests me the most, and I'm actually thinking about getting a separate specialist certification in it, is change management. Like, how do you make change smooth for everybody in the organization? And these heavy chain of command companies, that happens to be the company I work for now, is still very big on chain of command because it's an old family company with kind of that conservative, we still have to have the big guys up in the behind closed doors.
Sure.
It's a great company, by the way. They're a great company, but they are really into that. And what happens is they make these ideas, of course they have to make decisions, and then they walk out and they go, "This is what's going to happen, and you all have to do it," right? What happens is if you don't involve the people who are affected by the change in the change management, you get a lot of resistance and kickback and less productivity. So how does that work, right? So it's simple. You come out of those doors that you just made this change, the decisions to make these changes, and instead of going, "Okay, everybody, this is what you have to do because I say you have to do it," right?
Yeah.
You say, "Hey," you get all those people who are going to be affected by the change, and you have a meeting, and you go, "Look, here's the changes we're going to make." You're not asking them permission.
Right.
But you're saying, here's the changes we need to make. Maybe you explain why, maybe you don't, but this is the changes we need to make. We've made this decision. What do you need to make this change run smoothly for the work that you do for us?
Oh, yeah.
You involve them in the change.
Yeah.
That's how you flatten out an organization. All of a sudden, you've empowered people because you're saying, hey, your opinion matters to us because you do a good job and you do great work for us. Right. You also have to say to people, now we may not be able to use all your ideas.
Sure, right. Yeah.
If it's logical, makes sense for the business, and it's affordable, it's economically feasible, we will take those ideas and we'll implement them to make this change smooth for you.
Right.
And I think this is a lot of reasons why people are not engaged and they, muddle through life and they're not involved is because they're not asked to be involved. Right? They're not given that responsibility.
Right.
What's next for me would be getting this information out.
Right.
Like I think a lot of what I would like to do is provide information for people. Like some of the teaching I'd like to do would be this.
Yeah.
How do we do change? Let me tell you how you can retain your employees better by using this change management procedure. It's not my original idea. This change management procedure was invented by other people, or not invented, but created or developed and implemented by other people. Like Shrim is one of those companies, and by people with way more experience and knowledge than me. But companies are not hearing about it. They're not taking it and implementing it themselves because no one's tried to tell them how it can work for them. So that's something I think about, is maybe doing consultant work to companies on how to manage change and how to make it go smoothly for you so a company could become even more effective and stay in business and retain employees, because that's a big thing, is retaining employees. Right.
It takes a few of those things and wrap them up together, and kind of like they do music. They take Elvis take some Southern music and mix it with rock and roll and repackage that and send it out. It's not something that nobody ever heard. We've all heard Southern rock and but he took it to a new level, right? Just by taking two things together and packaging, like ZZ Top taking maybe an old bluesy thing and mixing it with that and then repackaging it. It's kind of what you need to do with this. Take what your knowledge here, take your knowledge there. It's not new, but to combine them and put them into maybe a podcast or, however you're going to try to get it out to the world, the information's there. You just have to repackage it and put it out in your own way.
And make it fresh.
And make it fresh. Yeah. Make it new in your own way. Right. Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Saying? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do.
Right.
Yeah.
That gives you a purpose, and that gives you, feel like you're doing something to help,
Yeah, because like I say, we have to still have companies and people still need to go get a job doing somebody else's dream. But if they felt like they were involved in that dream, in that vision, then they would be more engaged. The company would be more successful. People would be happier in their jobs.
Exactly.
Like the whole thing is to bring everyone up.
Right.
We want to bring everyone up, not just the owner of big companies or the CEO of a big company.
Sure.
Right? We want to bring everyone up to the next level. Yeah.
I grew up in my dad's lumber company and worked in a lot of lumber companies, throwing a lot of lumber around and drive trucks. And I've always banged heads with the management because they just are so rigid and stiff, and it's my way or the highway. And, I stay 2 hours loading trucks after I'm supposed to be there, but boy, I'm 2 minutes late hitting that time clock. They're right over you, hating you, and it's like, I do a lot.
Yeah, because recognition for what you do.
And it's just like, doctor, write you up because you were 5 minutes late. It's like, one of my kids had to get to school. Maybe you forgot something. You got to be more lenient. I'm lenient. I was here till dark loading trucks last night. I didn't get paid for that, but they don't want to hear that kind of crap. This is what you're supposed to do, and they just want to fire me for it. It's like, I just can't. I don't know,
I recently read something, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was along these lines of, something like, build a great team so that no one even knows who the boss is.
Right.
Like, why were those managers rigid with you? Because they needed to be the power and the authority.
Right.
So if we could, because we're afraid of giving away power and authority. As a manager, I'm supposed to have this power and authority, right? That means I have to have power and authority
and
over
almost
everything.
Enjoy to have some of that power too.
Well, true.
We're kind of a little freaky about that, and those kind of people kind of generally end up in the management positions because they want control, you know, and somebody like me, that just does not fly.
Well, that's why you work for yourself.
Over and over again.
No, I have a hard time with that too. And I, unfortunately, you know, my resume, one of the things on my resume is loyal and committed and hardworking as I am. I never stay anywhere too long.
Right.
It's one of the weaknesses of my resume, because by 2 years that this has happened 10,000 times to me, where, you know, managers didn't notice that I just worked, you know, 12, 14 hours a day for 4 days straight in a row.
Right.
And that next day I'm in, you know, maybe I'm in a half hour later, or even though I tell them, oh, why are you not, you know, one little thing that I didn't do, but then all this that I did do.
Right.
I know that, or I get bored to death because now it's repetitive stuff and they're not giving me enough new, fresh projects to do.
I remember my aunt calling my ex-wife one time and asking, you know, it's been about 3 years that Steve's been doing this. What's he going to do next? He doesn't usually last in things more than 3 years. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. She's kind of right, though. I do. I get bored. I want to move on. I get sick of it.
But also because you're curious. You're a curious human being. So am I. I'm very curious.
Right. I'm not finding that purpose.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
I've been doing this for over 10 years. I love it. I can't wait to do another 10 years. So it wasn't that. It's just maybe falling into where you're not getting recognition, or you're not feeling like you're doing something, you know, good other than feeding the family and keeping a roof over their head.
Or you're empowered with some responsibility that's maybe a little bit more than what you've been doing.
Sure, right.
Companies need to keep giving their people more responsibility.
Right.
And let them succeed or fail.
Yeah.
Right. But no, if they have that rigid, you know, chain of command where it's like, you know, just do what I say and don't question it, and never involving them in the change process, that's what you're going to get all the time.
It's been said a million times, but we went to school just in rows, keep looking forward. You know, just do what you need to do, and, you know, because they wanted factory workers, and, you know, but now you've got the same rows of kids in school, and, you know, there's not really any factory work anymore. You know, it's not really jiving with the way that they were trying to do that in the 50s with us. You know, it's like they wanted us to be workers.
Yep.
We trained to be worker bees, you know.
And stay in line.
Right.
Get in line, stay in line.
Which is, you know, at the time, you know, we're coming out of just a revolution of, you know, manufacturing and everything else. They needed that. Mm-hmm. That's what they needed. They needed hordes of worker bees.
Yep. And now there's not.
No, there's not.
Very little manufacturing.
There is in China.
There is there.
You know.
We were outsourced, yep.
Right. Yep. You know,
you have to remember
shoes
who did
made
that.
in Vietnam. You know, I always bought Hush Puppy shoes from Michigan. I always bought Red Wings from, you know, Wisconsin, or, you know, but boy, you flip them over and they all say made in Taiwan on them. It's like,
it's very hard to find things made in the USA.
It is, right. It's like, you know what, I'm just not going to buy stuff anymore. It's like, wait, I try to find a blender that's made in America.
Really hard.
It's not, you know, if it is, it's $50 more than.
But you know what? So I remember when we first started outsourcing, and people were talking about this then. They were like, oh my God, here we go. No, but you're going to have, you know, your toasters will be like, you know, $9.95, and your irons. And they were, and now I've never seen. So at first there were toasters for like $9.95,
sure,
right? And irons for $9.95, and T-shirts for $3.99, and now there's not, because the Chinese are also getting smart.
Right.
And the Chinese are having to pay their people more money. And then we have rising petroleum costs or whatever, and the shipping and all
everything else, right.
They're getting smart. There's no more $9.95 toasters. Now they're $29.95.
Right.
Like the cheapest toaster I think I found in like Target or one of those places was $29.95. So all that's changed too.
Right. So maybe it'll get us back to the point where maybe we can start opening some manufacturing plants here.
We're going to need to create work for people.
Right. There's EPA. There's a lot of, you know, bleeding heart people that don't want the manufacturing because it's going to cause pollution. Okay, I'm not saying it's not, but we got to get these people back to work and maybe make our own products and not be so needy.
And dependent on
Dependent was the word I'm
we don't
looking
want to
for.
be outsourcing everything. And
No.
we certainly don't want to outsource our food, because the minute we give away our food production to someone else, we're in trouble.
Right.
We're in trouble.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of farms out there that are shipping overseas. So when they shut down there was a lot of people in trouble that had farms that couldn't ship the product anymore overseas, and there's all kinds of different problems with that. More than I thought. I didn't really realize how much food that we shipped over to other countries.
Yeah, that can't grow enough of their own.
Yeah, right. So that's a huge problem too, So we have to feed people, and we can't switch.
Yeah, because even if we had manufacturing companies that had a lot of robotics, we need people who are trained to run those robotics.
See, that's the thing.
Maintain those robotics.
Right.
And program the.
Still, that does nothing for the middleman, though.
Right.
If you got engineers that are working on the robots, and it's like, well, I guess that's kind of a middle class. Not really. If you're
I think
engineers,
people can be trained. Like, it could be a technical school thing where there might not be people. There'll be engineers who design those robotics, but then there's people who need to, oil the parts.
Sure, right.
Everyday program. Okay, I want this robot to make 2,000 pieces. They need to punch in the numbers.
Right.
They need to monitor the robotic, action every day. They need to stop the machine, start the machine. There will be jobs.
Sure.
We'll create it, but we should open up manufacturing again, and not have everything given away, and especially because of the petroleum issues of shipping.
Right.
We burn a lot of fuel to get things from overseas.
Right.
We created globalization. We can't stop it. We created it. We can't stop it. It's too late. And maybe it's not a bad thing. Right?
Yeah.
But we also need to take care of our own too. We need to find a balance in that somehow.
My grandpa built a successful business in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Sparks Conveyor Belting. And he ended up selling that when he retired in his 70s. And he, like all of his business, he had many, many businesses, built furniture and all different types of things. And he sold it to the employees because that's just the way that, he would do things, because he wanted to do that. Well, less than a year later, they sold it. It's still up on the New York Stock Exchange, and they sold it for $200 million. That's not really what he was. And now the building's vacant.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know where they're getting it, somewhere else, in China maybe or something. Maybe they outsourced.
They took the business and everything overseas. And what was the deciding factor? The $200 million.
Yes.
That was what I was saying earlier.
My grandpa spent his whole life building that.
And he thought he was doing something, giving it back to the people.
Right. And the guy that sold the company came up to me and said, well, it's too bad your grandpa didn't stick around a little longer, because he would have got $200 million instead of the $20 million that he got. And I thought, you prick, to come up and say that to me when he was trying to sell it to the employees. That's just the way he was. He was from 1920s. He just wanted to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. He did the right thing. They got their. Yeah, it was kind of sad, because
how long will that money last over the long term, as opposed to a company that could serve generations of people?
It's on the New York Stock Exchange. Well, I guess that's cool. My grandpa's business is still out there, but not really.
But then there's a whole lot of people who will never have that opportunity to go get a job there, because now it's overseas.
It's gone.
Yeah, providing another community, different community with work.
Exactly.
And we have to think about those kinds of things. But you see what I was saying earlier to you. The bottom line is money. It's like, I want my money now. I want that. I don't want to provide for all the generations coming after me a consistent place to have work. I want money now. Right? I want to take my money, and I want to get all excited about that.
Right.
Yeah. And I have to think about that. Like, what is that about? Right?
Yeah.
I question that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 200 million sounds really cool. But it'll go away.
Yeah.
Faster than that company would have.
Right.
And the opportunity for jobs.
And all that. Yeah, exactly.
So what's next isn't just a personal question. It's a social question.
It is.
We need to be asking.
Right.
Society needs to be asking, what's next for us?
Right. If there's nowhere for us to work other than, Arby's and, the big
Kmart.
Kmart, right?
Doesn't exist anymore, right?
Don't
Walmart.
they? Yeah, right.
And
These
right,
big monsters.
What do they pay? I don't know, $12, $15, I don't know, whatever, $15 an hour maybe.
Yeah.
Right, like flipping burgers or folding T-shirts or checking people out of the grocery store.
Yeah. It's a weird thing because you hear about this, it almost sounds intentional where a big company like Target or something will move into a small town and then all the grocery stores and everybody shut down. And well, it's just not a feasible thing for this location anymore, so they shut that down. Well, now they don't have the mom and pop stores. They don't have all the gas stations. They don't have anything. So, and then they go shut that down. Well, you just dried up the whole town.
Yep.
You just evaporated that whole town. By your greed, you sucked out all the money that you could possibly, and it wasn't getting enough profit. Shut it down.
Well, remember, you and I are similar ages. You remember every town in America had a downtown. Yeah. And that's where you went, and there was a shoe store, clothing stores, hardware store, grocery store. I went my mom. So we went to the German butchers for all our meats. Right. German. They always used to give me pieces of smoked sausage to eat, right?
Oh,
and then
cool,
spoke to me in German. I didn't know what they were saying, right? And then we went to the Italian produce market. There was a little store, and you didn't touch it. The gentleman, he picked out, you want 3 apples? He picked them out for you, and they were perfect, right? He had them all stacked perfectly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then we went to the...
He took pride, didn't he?
He did, and then... we bought our bread and milk at a local store that was owned by this family where you had bread and milk. And we remember those downtowns, right? The hardware store, they knew everybody in your family.
Sure.
They remembered that you had Armstrong windows or whatever, and you needed that kind of handle.
Exactly, right.
They knew each other and everything, and then those downtowns are all gone. Sure. I remember the first mall. I come from a very rural town, but we used to go into this big town. And I remember the first mall that went in, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, the mall!"
Holy cow!
And so my grandma and my mom,
big city now,
big shoppers, right? So I was not really interested, but I had to go along with it.
Sure.
So we went to the mall, and then I watched just what you're saying. Little by little, downtown became a ghost town.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like that took away jobs from people who had generations of family businesses.
Yeah.
And where did they go to work? They went bagging at one of the stores. They had a bag or greet people or cashier.
I remember pulling into the gas station, and a guy would run out, "Hey, Sandy, how you doing?" To my mom, you need a pack of cigarettes. Bring out the chunk. They'd run the little
wash
card, wash your window. You want me to check your oil for you? It was like, in crispy white uniform, like,
that person had a purpose.
They had a purpose. They knew everybody.
Yeah.
He was the guy. He knew my mom by name, and it was like that's really cool.
Yeah.
Knew what she smoked. Had to have her Winstons. 70s.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Pulling in her little Volkswagen Bug. So that's great.
And those things have gone away, and I feel sad about that in a lot of ways.
I do too.
Because I think when like that person, you think, oh, what kind of job was that? Well, it was a beautiful job because you were a part of a community, that community, and people appreciated your service, and you knew that that to serve them was your purpose.
Right.
Like now you go into places and people don't even acknowledge you.
Right. So on Fridays the milkman would come, and you make a little list, and you had the little check of it. Get the chocolate milk and a couple of white milks and maybe some cottage cheese, and talk to me. Hey, how you doing, Bob? Whatever. And he'd bring all your stuff for you. Maybe that's an idea to bring, because that's a good job right now.
Well, and there are farmers that are doing what they call community CS. Oh, I've forgotten the word for it. CSE boxes, CSE or CS something or other. Community sustainable CSA boxes. Community sustainable agricultural.
Oh, I see. Right.
Boxes. So you can. There's a bunch of them online. You can go online, or you can find them through like agricultural associations, and they pack up a box of fresh produce every week and deliver it to your door.
Oh, no kidding.
There's a lot of farmers, especially and mostly sustainable farmers, ones that are growing things without chemical pesticides and herbicides. It's a big thing. So there is that happening, but not on a big enough scale.
Yeah, right. We'll put those on the second podcast and get those 2 people in case they want to do that. You know, that'd be a really good idea.
Boxes. There might be somebody local doing it.
Okay.
Too. I can find those people for you locally.
Yeah. So
Yep.
search those out and save a farm somewhere and wherever.
Yeah, because even agriculture has become, big business, and it's difficult for the small guy. I mean, before I worked for the company I work for now, which is thousands of people and huge. I worked for small family farmers.
Did you really?
Many of them have had to sell out. They've sold their land because what they could not afford to mechanize like some of the big players. For instance, I worked for Warren Weber of Star Route Farms, and I mention him by name because if you look him up, Alice Waters, a very famous foodie person from Berkeley, and she's written books. She actually has written about Warren Weber. So Warren Weber, he was a '60s guy, and he opened up his farm, Star Route Farms, in Bolinas, California, and he was the first person to bring the mesclun mix from Europe. The idea of the mesclun mix, and what the mesclun mix is the pre-washed salad greens. Right?
Oh wow!
So that was created in Europe long before we thought about it.
Okay.
And he spent a bunch of time in Europe. So during college and after college, and he said, "Wow, this would be a great product." And he always his love was agriculture. So he came and he bought some land in Bolinas, California when it was cheap, and he started a salad mix farm, and he called it mesclun mix. So he was the first person and he's an organic grower, so a sustainable agricultural operation. And he brought that idea, and he was the first salad mix in the United States.
Wow.
And it was called mesclun mix. And I mean, when I worked for Warren twice. I ran his whole southern farm down in the Coachella Valley. When we were at our peak, we were getting $15 a box wholesale. You can now buy salad mix by Earthbound Farms at Rayleigh's and Safeway. You can buy that for $5 a box. Can you imagine what the farmer's making for that?
Right.
We hand harvested all our little greens, all our spinach, everything was hand harvested by people and then washed in a salad mix packing shed. $15 a box wholesale, so it was being sold to the stores that you and I would go to shop at for, it was much more expensive than what it is now. Now it's like, you get it for pennies.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't compete when he finally had to shut down most of his operation, and he just had a niche market with like the 4 or 5-star restaurants in San Francisco and the Bay Area, and that's how he ended his career. His farm has now been sold to San Francisco University. They have it as an experimental farm. They still sell his product, but he's retired now because of the big players like Earthbound. Like Earthbound came in, they bought up lots of land, they mechanized, and they took that salad mix that we were doing by hand and turned it into just a mechanized operation. Oh,
no kidding.
And boom, the price fell to the floor. And if small farmers like Warren could not afford to mechanize, which we couldn't.
Right.
I think we had a total of 250 acres between the north and the southern farm. Earthbound had thousands of acres and big machines that were harvesting it.
Right.
We could not compete. Right. So a lot of these small farmers, and that's not the only farmer, Coke Farm, a lot of the small family farms had to fold up shop.
Couldn't they just give the product to the other companies that are...
No, because we were harvesting it by hand. We had to mechanize, and those machines were like, woo, over the top expensive.
Sure. Right,
so only the big players could afford the machines. Right. And a lot of small family farms didn't see what was coming.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them did. There's a local guy up in San Juan Bautista, Phil Foster, incredible organic farmer.
Really?
I know Phil and his operation, and he was smart in another way. He started diversifying, so he grows like everything you could possibly grow in San Juan Bautista.
Yeah.
And he has some land that's closer to the Hollister end of his town and closer than some land that's over here.
Yeah.
So he has fruit trees, he has bell peppers, he has celery, so he could, because he was so diversified, he didn't have to worry about losing money like in the salad mix business.
I see, right.
And he's he's a guy that might be good. I think he does the CSA boxes.
Oh, yeah.
But because he diversified, he was able to stay in business as a small family farm. In the case of Warren, he had we had good diversification, but the main core of his business was the mesclun mix.
Oh, I see.
And so when we lost that market, other than having it in the 5-star restaurants, he had to downsize. And the truth is, if he hadn't downsized, I'd probably still be at that farm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a dream of mine to run one of his farms, and I realized that dream, but we had to downsize because of the market changing.
Yeah.
But this goes along with your story of the milkman delivering and
right.
The small companies in the community serving the people.
Just getting eaten up.
Instead of it just being like this, we don't even know where our stuff comes from. We don't know.
Not a clue.
Yeah.
Right.
People grab a milk off the counter.
But I mean, I probably wouldn't eat salad if it wasn't in a pre-mixed bag. I wouldn't chop up everything. I wouldn't do all that.
It's convenient,
carrots.
isn't it?
It's as much as I bitch about plastics and this and that, but the truth is, if it wasn't for a mixed salad in a bag, I wouldn't eat salad.
No,
I
it's a great
wouldn't.
thing, and I'm glad they keep. At least we still have it, right?
Right.
It's just sad that small family farms had to sell out to
the
the
big. Too bad that they can't sell their product to the bigger guy so they can use it in their mix. But
Or that
why
somehow
would
they
the big
would be
guy want
incorporated.
them to survive? I guess.
Yeah. No, because it's about big.
It seems like you just
about
kind of
big.
all put your heads together and. You're growing celery, great. You're growing lettuce, great. You're growing,
Well, and I think there is still some of that.
I'm sure there is a lot of that.
There's still some of that,
Sure.
but you're kind of on your own out there to stay
Really?
in line with where the market's at, and going big is what happened to agriculture.
Right.
If you didn't go big and you didn't mechanize, you lost it, and a lot of farms went down like that.
Yeah, lots and lots of generations old farms too. It's just the way it's changing.
Yep, you either had to find a
Big
niche
money
market,
grab.
or diversify, or
Sell
or mechanize.
Yeah, right.
So much of agriculture now is mechanized.
Just so much money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Is there a good return? I know, like in the lumber industry, you got a very small profit margin. Is it
depends
farming
on the
a lot
product.
like that too?
No, it depends on the product, and there's trends, and then with agriculture,
Right.
if you got a pest or you've got an extra dry year or an extra wet year, and then you've got problems. You can have mold, you can have blights, you can have pest pressure, and the more, unfortunately, I know there'll be a lot of conventional farmers who won't want to hear this, but the more chemicals we use, the more chemicals we have to use, because pests become resistant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Right.
and then that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Right. Well, I know, like I've talked to guys.
Chemicals are expensive too. That's the other thing is chemical pesticides, whether it's a fungicide, herbicide, rodenticide, whatever, they're expensive.
Right.
So that adds an extra cost on top of farming.
I talk to people that try to grow different things like marijuana or whatever organically, and it's really interesting how they do it in different phases. At this point, they'll bring in the grasshoppers. At this point, they'll bring in a different type of pest. This one will eat these types of things, and then they'll introduce different. I don't know exactly the process, but it's all done. I mean, organically, like they'll say, it's like if you're killing pests, you're still giving it a pesticide, even though it's organic. I get what they're saying, but it's not done with the chemicals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's hard.
It's gotta
sustainable
be
farming
hard.
is not easy.
Right.
It's not easy because there are tons of pests, and because
Tons
we're
of pests,
monocropping.
clearly.
So monocropping is one entire Salinas Valley full of lettuce. That's monocropping, right? That's not the way we're meant to farm, by the way. We are meant to have a variety of products because when pests, especially like say flying pests, like now this isn't true of all pests, but if some flying pests, when they come in to an area, if they see color or sense if they don't see a lot of what they want, they'll fly right over it. Right? There's a good example of down in the Coachella Valley. Once I took some pictures. I was down there on a farm review before I lived there, and the squash growers had put these angled posts in the ground above their plants on each bed, right? And they were angled. So, and then they had this white cloth woven in between the posts, so that with the going in the direction of the prevailing winds, because these pests would come in on the prevailing winds, right? So they'd go over, and all they'd see was the white cloth, and they'd go right over the squash.
No kidding.
Yeah, so they wouldn't land on the squash.
Right.
So there's an example of a sustainable method
of
keeping the pests off your land. But then that's about monocropping. Like if you have rows of one thing and rows of another thing and rows of another thing, and then you have fruit trees and you have flowers and you have pests. Plants can harbor or host good pests. I mean, plants can harbor or host good pests that then eat the bad pests, right? Such as ladybugs are good pests, right? There's certain kinds of wasps that are good pests.
Praying mantis, I think,
praying mantis are good pests. But we're monocropping now, and I think in defense of conventional farming, they have to. Because we have to feed the masses.
The population is just out
and
of hand.
people aren't growing their food.
I have heard of, there's kind of a new wave going on where people are splitting up their land in like 4 different ways. And they'll grow soybean and blah, blah, blah on this one and have some cattle or, and then grow something else on this part, another piece on this. And then after a couple of years, they'll switch it around.
Rotate, yeah.
Or grow something different. Alfalfa or, whatever on this one, and they'll just keep switching it around or, and it's better for the land.
It is.
The dirt itself.
Yeah. That's a good help.
That way it doesn't deplete, like we were talking about with drops of balance. There's so many minerals that aren't in the soil anymore because of what you're saying. If we're just growing and growing and growing and growing on the same dirt,
Yep.
So
they do that. Like even in Salinas Valley, if you drive over there, you'll see romaine lettuce in one field, and then the next season you'll see broccoli, and then the next season you'll see.
Do they do that?
Artichokes.
Oh, no
yeah,
kidding.
They do. Yeah, they do it. But they're not rotating enough, and the problem over there is it's so chemical farmed oriented that you're leaching the soil. I mean, it's just you're killing the soil, because a lot of conventional growers think that they don't really care if the soil is fertile. That what they care is that there's no pests in it, right? So that's one of the downfalls of conventional farming, is that you're killing the soil. Then you add it back in the fertilizers, right? So you kill it so that nothing can grow there, and then you have to add back in the fertilizers.
Right.
I mean, we can't get away from conventional farming right now. We've created a society where people aren't growing enough food, and big growers have to grow for people. So in defense of them, they're doing the best they can, right? And it's very hard for them to rotate enough, right? And if you have to grow lettuce for how many millions of people there are in the United States, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You have to grow romaine lettuce for millions of people. You can't have a row of lettuce here, a row of carrots there. You have to have hundreds of acres, thousands of acres of lettuce, right? So in their defense, they're doing the best they can to feed America.
Right.
Without that, I mean, and they do rotate, but it's not enough rotation.
I see, right.
You mentioned alfalfa, by the way. Like, I don't think Salinas could grow alfalfa. It's not the right climate, but that's a great soil conditioner. So
is it?
You'll see that a lot where people will rotate. I work for a grower, James Durst Farming up in Yolo County, 5th generation Yolo County farmer. Great people, and they converted their farm to sustainable when he took it over from his dad, and he rotates alfalfa. So he'll plant alfalfa in a field, and he'll leave it there for about 3 to 4 years, and he sells that alfalfa to Strauss Dairy.
Oh, nice.
Because that's a sustainable dairy, right? And he gets good price, and then when that soil is replenished with nitrogen from the alfalfa, he'll pull it out and he'll start putting his Roma tomatoes or his melons or his cucumbers or his eggplant in there, and then he takes another field out of production from like tomatoes or whatever else he grows, and he'll put that into alfalfa.
The alfalfa into that one, right?
Years,
right,
yeah, and And
it's a high nitrogen type of plant or something. Is that what it is?
It's extraordinary. It breaks up the soil.
Okay.
It adds nitrogen back in. Well, it actually takes nitrogen while it's growing, but then when you disc it back in, it puts the nitrogen back in.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Must be a lot of plant matter to go back
in. And so he'll let that
see.
last crop grow, and he won't harvest that last one.
Oh, I see.
And then they go in and
just grind it right in, huh?
Grind it right in. Yeah.
Nice.
Do a mow, and then do a disc, and then do a chisel, and get that organic material high in nitrogen, the little nitrogen nodules on the roots, get that material back into the soil. So that would be like the ideal, but Salinas Valley probably can't grow. It's too wet there.
Oh, is it too wet? Yeah.
Yeah, for alfalfa, I don't think it would grow there. And also, Salinas Valley couldn't afford to have a field out of commission for 3 to 4 years.
Right, probably not.
There's just barely enough ground to grow everything we need now for lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, the things that we grow over there, right? So, fennel. What else do we grow over there? There's some celery in the Salinas Valley. Artichokes. What else is growing over there? Well, strawberries. Yeah. Big strawberry growers and stuff there. I don't think they could take a field out for 4 to 5 years.
Really?
Or 3 to 4 years.
Right.
That would really, and although alfalfa gets a pretty good price, it's not like lettuce and strawberries.
I see, right.
Broccoli, I mean, it's very low.
Yeah, it's a low.
And you have to bale it, and you got to stack it, and all that moisture from the fog, you'd have moldy hay.
Right,
I think you can't grow.
Right.
I don't know. There's people over in Salinas that would know better than me, but I don't think alfalfa would grow there.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't have fog when you do the harvesting, and then you lay it out, and then you come in and bale it. I mean, all that moisture on it would just turn it into mold.
There's just too much to know about farming.
Yeah. Oh my God.
There's just too much to know.
They think it's like people think, they stick some seeds in the ground and here we go.
No. You need to know
God.
so much.
Yeah. You do. Yeah. Yeah. You're not just a farmer. You're a mechanic.
Yeah.
You're a pest control person. You are everything. Then you're a salesperson.
Right.
You're, problem solver.
Definitely the scientist, though. That's probably number one.
That too, yeah.
You really have to know what you're doing. The dirt, what kind of things will grow in that particular dirt, or right. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much for being here today. We learned so much and had a good time, and went longer than we thought. There's so much to talk about. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, what's next? That's the big question.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. I hope you can come back sometime.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, we'll do this in a few months again and see where everything's at.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve.